Ever since I was old enough to understand, my billionaire parents and my brother hammered one truth into my head. I was a stray, a placeholder, a counterfeit. If I so much as smiled at my brother, he'd sneer and call me a social climber. When I won a prestigious gold medal for piano, my parents didn't celebrate. They had the Steinway smashed to pieces. They told me I was drinking the blood of their real daughter. The entire family lived in a state of constant vigilance. They were terrified of being kind to me, afraid that an ounce of warmth would whet my appetite and lead me to challenge the rightful heiress one day. So, when the real daughter finally returned, I was the one who asked to leave. I told them I wanted to find my biological parents, but they blocked me at every turn. They said that as long as I stayed in my place and kept my head down, I could remain their daughter and sister. I was stupid enough to believe them. Then came a mock exam. The real daughter failed. She cried, saying she could never be as good as me no matter how hard she tried, and then she staged a dramatic suicide attempt by nicking her wrist. In retaliation, they reported me for cheating during the SATs and orchestrated a sequence of events that landed me in a correctional facility. They called it the price for occupying a throne that wasn't mine. To atone, I endured every slander and every cold shoulder in silence. The day I was finally released, they presented me with a surprise. It turns out I was their biological daughter all along. They had kept it a secret because they were afraid their long-lost adopted daughter would feel heartbroken if she realized they had replaced her with a biological child while she was gone. Now that the older sister has finally accepted me, they've come to collect me, smiling and ready for a happy family reunion. The day I walked out, the sky was a bruised gray, and the wind was a serrated blade that cut straight to the bone. The guard handed me a thin, worn-out coat. "Michelle Vance, you're free. From now on, don't be stupid." He looked at my tightly clenched sleeves, his voice dropping an octave. "And tell your family, tell them to get you a therapist." My eyes were hollow. I nodded, pulling my sleeves down even further to hide what lay beneath. Yes,
I had served my time.
I had paid my debt. Now, I could go find my real family. I hadn't walked 10 yards when a black Rolls-Royce, hazard lights blinking, pulled up to the curb. The window slid down, revealing a face as familiar as it was striking. Dominic, Sophie's loving, older brother. His gaze was exactly as I remembered. Cold, clinical, devoid of any warmth. "Michelle,
Get in."
we're going home." I didn't look at him. I kept walking toward the bus stop. Just as I reached the steps of the bus, a hand clamped onto my shoulder with bruising force. I was yanked back, my spine colliding with the icy metal of the car. Dominic loomed over me, his eyes filled with that familiar, reflexive disdain. "What are you doing? Throwing a tantrum like Sophie used to? Trying to make us feel guilty? Did 2 years in a cell teach you nothing but theatrics?" Ever since I went inside, my brain had felt like rusted clockwork, slow, heavy, grinding. I stared at him blankly, taking a long time to process his words. Finally, I shook my head. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a piece of paper, softened and frayed from being folded and unfolded 1,000 times. I smoothed it out for him to see. "No," I said, my voice sounding like dry leaves skittering on pavement. "Sophie came to see me last time. She told me she found my real parents.
Look.
The address is right here. I'm going to my actual home." He froze for a split second. Then, his face darkened into a mask of fury. He snatched the paper from my hands and ripped it into a dozen pieces, tossing them into the roaring traffic of the wet highway. "Stop this madness," he growled, grabbing my arm. "Mom and Dad are waiting. You're coming with." I let out a sharp, strangled scream. I wrenched myself free with a strength I didn't know I possessed and bolted into the middle of the road. Home.
I have to go home.
I dropped to my knees on the freezing asphalt, frantically clawing at the scraps of white paper as they swirled in the wind. Tires screeched. Horns blared like dying animals. "Jesus! Are you trying to get killed?" Someone yelled from a car window. Dominic's face was ashen. He lunged forward, shielding me with his body as he shouted apologies to the angry drivers. He practically dragged me back to the shoulder of the road. Michelle. His chest was heaving, a flicker of genuine fear in his eyes, but it was quickly eclipsed by his habitual irritation. If you want to die, do it somewhere I don't have to watch. Using these cheap tricks for attention, the family really wasted years raising you. I stared up at him, my mind lagging behind. I tilted my head, looking at him with genuine, quiet confusion. Then, when Sophie cut her wrists, was she just doing it for attention too? Dominic went rigid. Every muscle in his jaw locked. For the first time in my life, I saw him flinch. He couldn't meet my eyes. There it was. Even he knew. Sophie. That name had been a crown of thorns around my head for as long as I could remember. I was the fake. I was the parasite. I was the intruder. That was why my mother fired the nanny, who served me dessert first. That was why my father smashed my piano. That was why Dominic drowned the stray puppy I had rescued from the rain. They used every choice, every moment, to prove a point. They would never let the shining pearl suffer a single slight just because I had been the one physically present in their lives. The scale of their hearts was always tipped in her favor, by design. But I still didn't get it. If she had all the love, if the world was served to her on a silver platter, why did she have to bleed just because I beat her on a practice test?
Sophie.
What on earth were you so afraid of? Dominic rubbed his temples, his frustration radiating off him in waves. You know Sophie isn't like you. She grew up out there, suffering. She didn't even get to finish school properly. You were brought into this house and given every resource, every elite tutor. You had to be number one every single time? You just had to crush her? You knew it would trigger her. I didn't really hear him. I was shivering, trying to piece together the sodden scraps of paper in my hand. 3 pieces were missing. It's gone. My voice trembled. The address. My home is gone. I started to move toward the road again, desperate.
Slap.
The blow was so sudden and so sharp that my head snapped to the side. My ear rang with a high-pitched whine. Before I could recover, Dominic dragged me toward a stagnant, icy puddle by the side of the road. You want to die, Michelle? He let go, pointing at the dark, freezing water. Then jump.
Go on.
Stop the performance. With a violent sweep of his hand, he knocked the remaining scraps of paper from my grip. They fluttered like dying moths into the filthy, slushy water. I looked at him. His eyes were full of that familiar, towering condescension. I remembered Sophie's first birthday back with us. She cried, saying the pearl necklace Dominic gave her was missing and that she'd seen me in her room. At first, I fought back. I didn't take it. Check the security cameras. Before I could finish, Dominic took a baseball bat and smashed the camera right in front of me. He was teaching me a lesson. My truth meant nothing compared to Sophie's tears. The necklace wasn't in my room. It was eventually found at the bottom of the backyard pool, the string cut, pearls scattered across the tiles. Everyone in the family knew I had a near-death drowning experience as a child. I had severe aquaphobia. Even a full bathtub made me feel like I was suffocating. But that winter, Dominic had me thrown into the icy pool.
Get them, he had said.
Every single one. Don't come out until you find them all. My parents watched Sophie sob into their shoulders and said nothing. They let it happen. I passed out in that freezing water multiple times. Each time, they'd wake me up with more cold water until my blue, numb fingers had found every last pearl. Since then, even a reflection of light on a water surface made me shake. Dominic knew this. He was certain I was too afraid of water and too afraid of death to actually jump. He didn't know that in prison, when I used a sharpened piece of plastic to open my veins, all I felt was peace. The ER doctor had told the guards, she has a profound desire for self-destruction. Without a support system, she won't last. Dominic looked at my empty, hollow eyes and smirked. Coward. You don't even have the guts to look at the water. Think about how much Sophie must have suffered too. He didn't finish the sentence. I lunged forward and dove headfirst into the stinking, freezing puddle. The water closed over my head, burning my nose and throat. Getting back to my real family was my last hope for living. If I couldn't have that, I didn't want anything else. A second later, I was yanked out by the waist and slammed onto the muddy grass. I coughed violently, retching up dirty water. Through the blur, I saw Dominic. He was soaked, kneeling in the mud, his hands still trembling from the force of pulling me out. He was staring at me, his pupils blown wide. The look in his eyes wasn't disdain anymore. It was disbelief. And something else. A flicker of raw, unadulterated terror. I didn't understand. What was he afraid of? If the fake died, wasn't that what he and everyone else wanted? I looked at the pulp in my hand, the wet, gray remains of the paper where the ink had bled into illegible clouds. A wave of exhaustion, a soul-deep weariness, washed over me. I was so tired. If I had a knife right now, could I finally just sleep? Dominic watched me, his voice finally losing its edge, turning soft, almost tentative. Michelle, why? You weren't like this before. Since when did you start taking my words so literally? He was right. Since I was a toddler, he told me. Michelle, you're just a placeholder. Know your place. Sophie is my only sister. Back then, I'd just smile and ask him for a hug. Later, I'd study until my fingers cramped to make him his favorite snacks, only for him to sneer, "You're so pathetic, Michelle." Sophie would never beg for affection like this. I'd still smile and hold the plate out to him. No matter how cruel he was, the little girl I used to be followed him around like a shadow. I was convinced he just had a temper, that he didn't actually hate me. Until Sophie came back. Then I realized what he looked like when he actually loved someone. When Sophie and I were cornered by some older bullies in high school, he rushed in and pulled her behind him.
He didn't even look at me.
Not once. He just walked away with her. His friend had pointed at me, stuck in the mud. "Hey, Dominic, what about the other one?" "She's not my sister." I watched them leave. I stayed behind to face the insults and the shoves alone. I struggled to sit up, my brain trying to conjure the ghost of the address on that paper, but the memory was fading. "Michelle, come home." "Stop this," Dominic said. It was that nauseating, self-righteous tone of comfort again. "The whole family is waiting. We're having Christmas dinner." "Dominic, you are my brother. You have no right to tell me what to do." I screamed, my voice raw and screeching. "I just want to go to my real home, to my real parents." I swung my hand and slapped him. Hard. Dominic's head snapped back. He froze, but his gaze dropped to my wrists. They were covered in a lattice of scars, some old and white, some jagged and fresh. He turned pale. His eyes turned red in an instant. "Michelle, your hands." His voice shook with a sudden, sharp grief. Did someone hurt you in there?" I thought I paid the guards to look after you." He looked sad. He looked hurt. It was absurd. I had finally stopped chasing him, finally stopped calling him brother. What did he have to be sad about? I felt a surge of pure, physical nausea. "Dominic," I said, my voice like dry ice. "Why are you acting like a martyr now?" He didn't answer. He grabbed my arm and shoved me into the car, clicking the seatbelt shut with a snap. "We're going to the hospital first," he said, his voice tight as he started the engine. "I'm not going to a hospital. I'm going home. Let me out." I thrashed against the belt, clawing at his collar, my nails leaving long, bloody furrows across his cheek. He didn't move. He didn't fight back. He just gripped the steering wheel, jaw set, blood dripping down his face. That silence, that suffocating, unresponsive wall, triggered a memory of the solitary confinement cell. My head began to throb. The last trace of the address vanished from my mind. I went limp. My hands fell to my sides. He glanced at me, misinterpreting my silence. He actually managed a small, pathetic smile. "Michelle, you still care about me, don't you? You stopped." I smiled back. Then I lunged across the center console and grabbed the steering wheel, jerking it with everything I had. "If I can't go home, let's just go to hell." Screech. The tires howled against the pavement. The car lost control, spinning and slamming into the guardrail with a bone-jarring thud. The airbags deployed with a bang. Dominic gasped for air, blood trickling from his forehead, his eyes wide with the terror of a survivor. He turned to see the look on my face. I wasn't scared. I was disappointed. "Michelle, do you want to die that badly?" I didn't answer. I just stared at him with dead eyes. He swallowed hard, his voice dropping to a whisper, a desperate plea.
Fine.
Okay. No hospital. We'll go home, okay? Just stay with me. I lowered my eyes and gave a tiny, almost imperceptible okay. Dominic's shoulders slumped in relief. He thought I was being good again. He didn't know. I just remembered. Sophie knows where my real home is. I was going back to find her. The Blackwood estate was glowing with warmth and festive lights. When we pushed through the front doors, the scent of pine and expensive candles hit me. Sophie was sitting on the sofa in a designer dress, her cheeks flushed with health, leaning into our mother's side. "Mom, I'm only back for a few days. You didn't have to make such a fuss," Sophie chirped. Our father was sitting nearby, patiently peeling shrimp for her, his eyes full of adoration. The dean called. He said, "You won another award. Our Sophie is so talented. Of course we have to celebrate." It was a picture-perfect scene of domestic bliss. Dominic cleared his throat, his jaw tight.
Mom, Dad.
I brought Michelle back. The laughter died instantly. 3 pairs of eyes swung toward us. First to me, then to Dominic's soaked clothes and the bloody scratches on his face. My parents' brows furrowed in unison. Sophie was the first to stand. She walked toward me, her voice dripping with that concerned older sister act she'd perfected. "Michelle, Dominic went out in the snow to get you personally. How could you do this to him?" She sighed, playing the part of the mature one. "You're college-aged now. Can't you be a little more sensible? Must you always make the family worry?" My mother's face hardened. "Michelle, this is unacceptable. Your brother just got over a cold." My father let out a cold snort. She was always a troublemaker. Fighting in high school, coming home bruised. I suppose 2 years with criminals only made it worse. Enough. Dominic's voice was sharp, cutting through my father's sentence. He looked at Sophie, his expression unusually stern. "I did this to myself. It wasn't Michelle." He paused, then added, "And Sophie? Michelle never went to college. Maybe think before you speak next time." The room went tomb silent. They stared at him, shocked. Dominic, the golden son, had never once defended the fake sister, let alone snapped at his precious Sophie. Sophie's eyes filled with tears instantly. Her lip wobbled. "Fine. She's the sister you grew up with, and I'm just the outsider. I don't have the right to speak to her. I'm sorry I even came back." Dominic looked conflicted, his gaze flickering away. My mother rushed to Sophie, pulling her into a protective embrace. "Dominic, how could you speak to her like that?" Then she turned her venomous gaze on me. "And you, Michelle, you just get back and you're already upsetting your sister. Why are you so selfish?" I looked at this woman, dripping in diamonds, her face twisted with habitual annoyance toward me, and the word "mom" died in my throat. She wasn't my mother. It made sense that she hated me. "Let's just eat," my father sighed, trying to break the tension. "Your brother made us wait for hours just for you. Sophie is starving." I looked up. Did I ask her to wait? I didn't wait for a reply. Dominic made that choice. It has nothing to do with me. Sophie's eyes went wide. "Michelle, have you lost your mind? How dare you talk to him like that?" "He's not my brother," I said, my voice steady and clear. "He's your brother." I looked at them all. I didn't come here to eat. I turned to Sophie. "I came to ask for the address. My parents' address. Once I have it, I'm gone. I won't ruin your family reunion anymore." The color drained from Sophie's face. My mother frowned. "What are you talking about? This is your home." "I mean my real home. My biological parents," I said, staring Sophie down. "You told me in prison that you found them. You gave me a note. I lost it. Give it to me again. Now." The air in the living room turned to ice. My parents looked at Sophie, their expressions turning unreadable. Sophie stammered. Isn't this family good enough? Why do you have to look for? I have to. I was shaking now, my voice rising to a scream. I want to go home. I want my own parents. Let me go. Dominic couldn't take it anymore. He turned to our parents, his voice exploding with repressed rage. Just tell her. Tell her the truth. We agreed, didn't we? We were going to give her the surprise when she got out. I looked at him, confused. He wouldn't look back. As the eldest son, Dominic held weight in this house. My parents exchanged a look. Finally, my mother sighed. She looked at me, her voice suddenly forced, sweet, like she was talking to a frightened animal. Michelle, sweetheart, the truth is, you are our biological daughter. My brain went numb. A high-pitched ringing filled my ears. My mother kept talking, her voice smooth and practiced. Sophie, she was the daughter we adopted first. Before we had you, she went missing. We never stopped looking for her. But Sophie is sensitive. We were afraid that if she knew we had a biological child while she was gone, she'd feel like we didn't love her anymore. So we kept it a secret. We told the world you were adopted too. She smiled, then a relieved, self-satisfied smile. She looked at Sophie. But it's okay now. Sophie has matured. She's accepted you.
See? We can be a real family now.
Perfectly whole. They smiled at each other. It was a look of completion, of a job well done. They even looked merciful, as if they were doing me a favor by finally claiming me. I watched them. I watched Sophie lean into my mother's arms. I watched my father nod in approval. I watched Dominic's stiff, frozen profile. The warmth left my body. The single thread that had pulled me out of the mud, through the prison bars, and through the icy water the hope of a real home snapped. I swayed. Dominic caught my arm. Look, Mom, Sophie chirped. Michelle is so happy, she can't even stand up. My mother's smile widened. Quick, sit her down. She's probably overwhelmed with joy. I was guided to the table. It was a feast, but half the dishes were seafood, the one thing I was deathly allergic to. My head spun. The people around me became blurred, monstrous. So I was the biological one. All the abuse, the coldness, the prison time, the violence, whose debt was I paying? Whose ghost was I atoning for? Michelle? Sophie said, her voice dripping with mock kindness. Did you forget how to crack a crab in prison? Here, let me do it for you. I'll find the one with the most roe. My mother beamed. Our Sophie has such a big heart. My father nodded. That's right. From now on, you two sisters need to look out for each other. We'll treat you both the same. Who is your sister? I said. It wasn't loud, but the table went dead silent. Sophie. I looked at her tear-filled face. You're the fake. What right do you have to call me sister? I let out a jagged, mocking laugh. Sister? You aren't even worth the dirt under my shoes. Sophie's hands froze over the crab. The tears came instantly, a perfect, cinematic deluge. You're right, she wailed. I'm not a Blackwood. I'm the intruder. I'll just leave. I'll go so the real daughter can have her place. Sophie. Stop it. My mother lunged for her, pulling her close and glaring at me. Blood or not, Sophie is a daughter of this house. That will never change. My father slammed his fist on the table. It's just a label. You grew up in luxury, Michelle. What is there to fight about? You come back and immediately tear this family apart. We should have left you in that cell. Luxury? I laughed out loud, wrenching my arm away from Dominic. If it's just a label, then let's go public. Tell the world. Tell everyone that Sophie is the one with no blood tie to this family. No, my mother shrieked. Sophie suffered so much while she was lost. She can't handle the gossip, the looks, the judgment. But I could. I asked quietly. I handled it for 20 years. She took my name, my place, my love. Wasn't that the lesson you taught me? The fake has to know her place? Fine, Sophie screamed. She grabbed a small, sharp crab knife from the table and held it against her wrist.
Mom, Dad.
Michelle is right. I'm the one who shouldn't be here. I have nothing to give her back, so I'll give her my life. Sophie, no. My mother's scream nearly hit the ceiling.
I didn't even get a chance to speak. Sloppy.
A blow, fueled by raw, masculine fury, landed on my face. The metallic taste of blood filled my mouth. My vision blurred. My father was towering over me, his face purple with rage. You monster! Are you trying to kill your sister? Apologize. Now! My mother was sobbing hysterically. I told you we shouldn't have had her. We only did it to cope with losing Sophie. If it wasn't for her, Sophie wouldn't be hurting like this. I looked at them. My family. I saw the hatred in their eyes. The wish that I didn't exist. I looked at Dominic. He was frowning, his eyes full of that familiar disappointment. I smiled. It must have looked terrifying because Sophie's hand trembled. I reached out and picked up a longer, sharper carving knife from the center of the table. I walked toward her, step by step. I saw you do this before, back when I was in school. You hold the knife so lightly. You barely break the skin. I stopped in front of her, tilting my head. My eyes were black pits. Do you even know how to do it properly? She turned pale, terrified by the emptiness in my gaze. She backed away, her voice shaking. What? What are you doing? Don't be scared. I smiled.
Squelch.
The sound of metal sliding through flesh was sickeningly clear. Then, the blood-hot, bright, and pressurized sprang out from my wrist like a fountain that had been suppressed for too long. See that? I was shaking, caught in a strange, violent euphoria. I held my arm up, the blood drenching my clothes, my voice flickering like a dying candle. That's how you do it, Sophie. The room began to tilt. The red was everywhere. I collapsed onto the rug, the warmth leaving me in waves. Sophie was covered in my blood. She looked like she'd been struck by lightning. She's crazy, she's a lunatic. Silence. A heavy, suffocating silence. Until a pool of red reached Dominic's shoes. No! Dominic screamed a sound that didn't belong to a human being. He scrambled across the floor, falling to his knees in the blood. He tried to cover the wound with his hands, but the blood just pulsed through his fingers. No, Michelle. He was sobbing, his tears mixing with the blood on my face. Hospital. We need a hospital now. He looked at our parents, who were frozen in shock. Call an ambulance. Do something. My mother let out a harrowing shriek. My father fumbled for the phone, his face white. Dominic tried to lift me. His hands were shaking so hard, he almost dropped me. He held me against his chest, and I could feel his heart hammering like a trapped bird. Don't be scared, Michelle. I've got you. I'm taking you to the hospital. Please stay with me. I looked at them. For the first time, I saw real, unfiltered terror on their faces. Not anger, not disgust. Pure, soul-crushing fear. It didn't move me. It only made me feel sick. The cold was settling in. My consciousness was drifting upward. Finally, I forced my lips to move. Dominic leaned in, his ear to my mouth.
What?
Michelle, what is it? I used every last ounce of my soul to whisper into his ear, right into his crying, desperate eyes. Go to hell. I never want to see any of your faces in the next life. He froze as if he'd been struck by lightning. Then he let out a guttural howl of grief and ran for the door. The darkness was warm. It was kind. Finally. I didn't owe anyone anything. How light I felt. I expected to wake up in the afterlife. Instead, I woke up to the smell of bleach, the hum of a heart monitor, and a heavy weight on my arm. Michelle, you're awake. My baby. My mother's face, haggard, tear-streaked, unrecognizable, loomed over me. She grabbed my hand, sobbing. How could you? You almost died. Do you want to leave us? Do you want your family? I looked away. I looked at the thick bandages on my wrist. Why am I still alive?
My voice was a flat line.
Dominic was sitting in the corner. He looked like a ghost. His shirt was still stained with my dried, black blood. He stood up, his voice cracking. Michelle, don't say that. I called the facility. The doctors there, they said you had severe depression. That you'd been hurting yourself for a long time. He knelt by the bed, trying to catch my eye. It's an illness, Michelle. We know now. We don't blame you. We'll get you the best help. We'll stay with you, please. My mother cried into her hands.
Why didn't you tell me?
If I had known. I let out a small, jagged laugh. Tell you. I looked at her. I was in there for 2 years. Did you visit me once? Just once. Now you want to play the grieving mother. Isn't it a bit late for that? My father, sitting in the shadows, looked like he'd aged a decade overnight. His hair had gone gray. Michelle, don't be cruel to your mother. She almost died giving birth to you. Blood is thicker than water. I laughed harder. It sounded sharp and ugly in the quiet room. You people are disgusting, I whispered. Even now, you try to use my birth to chain me. I looked at my mother. You said it yourself.
You didn't want me.
I was just a coping mechanism for your loss, Sophie. I looked at the bandages. Having your blood in my veins, it makes me feel dirty. Then I looked at them and gave them a sweet, curious, terrifyingly cold smile. You're right. Blood is thick. Hard to wash out. I paused. So, do you want me to do what the old myths say? I watched the color drain from their faces. Should I cut the flesh from my bones and give it back to you? Would that make us even? Is that what you want? After that, they stripped the room, no sharp objects. No glass. Even the windows were locked. Sophie tried to come in once. She threw herself on the floor, banging her head against the tiles, screaming that she wanted to atone, that she should be the one to die. Dominic did something he'd never done. He slapped her. Then he dragged her out. I could hear her hysterical sobbing echoing down the hallway. I felt nothing. I just watched the shadows move across the ceiling. My mother tried to read to me. Michelle, remember the story? You were so afraid of the dark when you were little. I snatched the book and tore the pages out, throwing the confetti in her face. Get out. I screamed. You aren't my mother. She fled, sobbing. My father brought in a brand new Steinway, worth more than a house. When he saw a flicker in my eyes, he scrambled to speak. You used to love the piano, Michelle. You worked so hard. Look, I got you the best one. Do you like it? I smiled. A real smile. They looked so hopeful. I got out of bed, my legs shaky. They held their breath as I sat at the bench. I played a piece perfectly, beautifully. The notes hung in the air. They started to clap, their faces full of pathetic relief. I smiled again. Then I picked up a heavy iron hammer that a workman had left by the door. Before they could move, I swung it. I smashed the keys. I smashed the wood. I didn't stop until the piano was a carcass of wire and splinters. Wood chips cut their faces, but they were too frozen in horror to move. My parents stopped coming after that. They only watched me through the glass in the door, weeping. But Dominic wouldn't give up. He brought a box of pastries. His fingers were bandaged. He'd been the one to clean up the piano. He held a piece of cake to my lips. You're so pathetic, Dominic, I said. He froze, begging for scraps of attention. I sneered. Doesn't it hurt Sophie's heart to see you like this? He was silent for a long time. Then he sat down, his head bowed. Michelle, there's a reason we treated you the way we did. I waited. When I was 8, I was kidnapped. Sophie, she was the one who got me out. She saved my life. That's why we loved her so much. Years later, my parents asked her if she wanted a sister.
She cried.
She said she knew she was adopted, and she was so scared that if a real child came, she'd lose her place. She just wanted to be loved completely, just once. Then, the kidnappers came back for me. Sophie pushed me out of the way of their car. She was the one they took. She was gone for 8 years because of me. He looked up at me, a tiny, dying spark of hope in his eyes. I nodded. I get it. Before the spark could catch, I spoke again, my voice conversational. Then you should have died with me. He choked on his breath. It's a bit gross. I tilted my head. But wouldn't that be the perfect way to fulfill her dream? To have your undivided love in the grave. The light in his eyes went out. He couldn't even speak. What? I mocked. Are you disappointed that your touching truth didn't move me? I leaned in close. Did I cause her suffering?
No.
Why should I, someone you lied to for 20 years, be the one to pay your debts? If you feel so guilty, why don't you just go kill yourself? I watched his soul crumble. Too scared. They stopped talking to me. The doctors kept me sedated, a hazy existence of white walls and needles. One night, the doctor didn't come. By midnight, the sedation wore off. My mind was razor-sharp. Prison teaches you things. I used a wire from the curtain rod to pick the lock on the door. I avoided the cameras. I went up the stairs, past the danger signs, and pushed open the heavy iron door to the roof. The night wind was howling. You really are insane, aren't you, Michelle? I turned. Sophie was standing there. Her arm was bandaged too, but her eyes were full of a dark, twisted glee. You think dying will make them love you? You're the biological one, and they still chose me for 20 years. You'll always be the backup. I looked at her and laughed. Want to see how insane I am? I lunged. I grabbed her arm and dragged her toward the ledge. Her scream was swallowed by the wind. Her smug smile turned into raw terror. Let me go. Help. I grabbed the back of her neck, my fingers digging into her skin. I thought you wanted to atone? I thought you wanted to die for me. Her screams finally brought them. My mother, my father, and Dominic. They burst onto the roof. Sophie was sobbing. She's going to kill me.
Mom. Dad.
Help me. My mother collapsed. My father was white as a sheet. Dominic took a step forward, his voice trembling. Michelle, please, let's talk, please. I looked at them. It was so comical. Do you think, I said slowly, that I want her to die? I looked at the sky.
No.
I want you to be the ones who have to live with this. And I'm done waiting. I kicked Sophie away from the ledge. She fell back onto the roof, screeching, a yellow stain spreading across her white dress as she lost control of her bladder. My parents rushed to her, clutching her like she was a holy relic. I took a step back, toward the edge. I smiled at them one last time. See you never. I let myself fall. The wind was loud, then quiet. The fall felt like an eternity, but it was so light. When I opened my eyes, I was floating. The spirits told me I had 7 days to linger. So I watched. I watched them scream over my broken body. I watched my mother take a knife from the kitchen and plunge it into her own heart by my grave. I watched my father wither away in a hospital bed, eventually pulling his own oxygen tube. I watched Sophie, truly insane now, screaming in a padded cell, calling for a mommy and daddy who would never come. I watched Dominic. He handled the funerals. He was the last one left. He walked into the deep end of the estate's pool, the same one where I once nearly died. As the water closed over his head, he looked up and whispered, "Wait for me, Michelle." I smiled. Then I turned and walked into the light. I will never see any of you again. End.